evolution and nature in general is just a massive fucking arms race to see who's gonna kill each other first. That's just how it is. One of the very interesting examples of this is the conflict between bark beetles and pine trees. So this is a type of bark beetle. There's a ton of different ones. If you live in Canada, particularly Western Canada, like Alberta and BC, you know and you hate these motherfuckers. They're not good. There's lots of species that are hella invasive and just pain. Bark beetles, as you may have guessed, they burrow underneath the bark of trees, particularly pine trees and other coniferous trees. And that, as you may have guessed, is generally not great for the tree. But the tree does have some defenses, particularly in the form of pitch or resin, that when it's injured, it will secrete in order to stick the bugs in, so the bugs get stuck and die. And this works great for a few beetles. But what lots of these beetles do to get around that pitch problem is they will mass attack trees. Like, there will be, like, swarms of these beetles just attacking one specific tree, and they will just keep going at it until the tree runs out of pitch to produce, because this is not an infinite supply. It will run out eventually. And when the tree runs out of pitch to produce, then the beetles can take over, burrow into the tree, profit. The tree dies, which is unfortunate, but the beetles, they're chillin'. The tree does not want to die, obviously, so it's got another solution. Okay. The pine tree will produce these things called monoterpenes. This is a bunch of different ones. They're found all over, in a bunch of different plants. A ton of them produce these, but pine trees in particular will produce ones that are toxic to the bark beetles. So the bark beetles will start burrowing into the tree. Say they don't get quite overwhelmed by pitch all at once, but when they're burrowing, they get attacked by these monoterpene chemicals, and then they die. And then the tree is like, perfect, we love this, we're getting rid of the beetles. But sometimes the beetles don't die, and they actually can take these monoterpenes that they ingest, and instead of dying like intended, they will sequester them and then use them as pheromones to communicate with other individuals of their species. So instead of dying from these toxic chemicals that the tree is producing in order to kill them specifically, they're like, great, thank you, this is mine now, and we're gonna use them in order to attract other pine beetles over to you so we can kill you faster. Now, in many cases, these bark beetles are a massive problem. They are heavily invasive. Well, not these ones specifically, I'm not entirely sure, but there are bark beetles that are incredibly invasive in the forests of BC. It is causing a ton of problems, but there are some advantages to the bark beetle pine tree relationship in areas where both of them are naturally occurring. Older pine trees are far more susceptible to bark beetle infestations, so the pine beetles go and attack the older trees and they end up killing them usually, which gives the younger trees that are more resistant to them a chance to kind of flourish better without the competition from the older trees. The older, more established trees are killed off by these bark beetle infestations. They fall, they give the younger, robust trees a chance to grow up big and strong and promote the more genetic diversity of the forest. Another advantage of this is that many coniferous trees, such as pine trees, or actually I'm not entirely sure which one specifically because I didn't want to look that up, but many coniferous trees have cones with seeds inside them that can only be opened under intense heat, such as from a forest fire. Now, I've made videos before about how forest fires can have benefits to the environment if in controlled situations and not burning like crazy, like all over the fucking country. That's not the point. But oftentimes, naturally, Forest fires are the only ways that these cones can open and actually distribute their seeds, so these trees need forest fires in order to spread their seeds around. And old dead trees, such as dead due to the bark beetle infestations, they are way more likely to catch fire. And so by increasing the chances of forest fires, by increasing the amount of dead, dry plant matter, it can provide an opportunity for these seeds to get opened and established into new trees, as well as clearing out all of the debris and junk and built up plant matter in old, dead, or sick trees. So there are definitely advantages to this pine tree bark beetle relationship, just in a controlled, balanced way, in a environment that can allow this fucking arms race to develop naturally.